You have to make the punishment infinitely worse than the crime. And I'm talking about deporting the entire family, denaturalizing the entire family, sending the entire group of them back to Somalia.
There's a lot to unpack there. Now, guys, we got to check in with the controversial streamer Asmongold, who is huge on YouTube and on streaming platforms now, and is increasingly dipping his toes in political commentary, often coming to more right-leaning conclusions. And he has weighed in on the huge scandal and viral sensational story about the alleged fraud. There's been prosecutions and criminal charges in many cases, but now a bunch of daycares are being accused of being fraudulent, run by mostly, though not exclusively, Somali members of the Somali community in Minnesota. And a YouTuber's investigation obviously went viral recently, Nick Shirley. And Asmongold has discussed it and called for some pretty extreme responses that don't actually make any sense if you understand how our political and legal system works. And I want to talk about it because he's so viral, and this clip got like 8 million views of him. And I do fear, while I understand his frustration, I fear that he is not fully grasping how these things actually work. Let's listen.
You have to make the punishment infinitely worse than the crime. And I'm talking about deporting the entire family, denaturalizing the entire family, sending the entire group of them back to Somalia. That's what needs to happen. And anybody complicit and anybody involved in this scam.
So I want to pause on this and explain to you what he's saying. Because again, this clip went super viral and it got like 8 million views. So it's spreading far and wide, and people are in their frustration, which is understandable, at hundreds of millions to allegedly billions being stolen by taxpayers by a relatively small portion of the total Somali population, but the population that's the people doing the fraud in some of these cases are disproportionately, like vast majority, members of the Somali community. So it's not unfair to say that this is a specific issue, but obviously you can't blame every person of Somali descent either. But he's saying that the federal government should respond to this scandal by denaturalizing people because, unfortunately, the facts show that most of the Somali people involved in these crimes so far have actually been citizens, either U.S. born or naturalized citizens. They haven't even been people here on visas or refugees who have, a more limited legal status. They've actually been citizens. So what he's suggesting is denaturalization, which is the process by which the government can strip citizenship from someone after they give it to them. Now, here is the glaring problem with that. There is law that governs immigration policy, actually. And it is not a choose-your-own-adventure game. And federal law only allows for denaturalization in a few circumstances, such as when it's proven that you illegally obtained citizenship in the first place. I'll put on screen here some resources from federal websites. The grounds for revocation of naturalization include when a person procured their naturalization illegally, or when they concealed material facts or willfully misrepresented information on their application. Other circumstances where you can also potentially denaturalize somebody involve, I believe, dishonorable military discharges, and if they join an official terrorist organization, other things like that. But simply, once you're a naturalized citizen, if you commit a crime like fraud, like scamming government subsidies, then there is no legal basis by which you could take away someone's citizenship. So there's literally no legal mechanism. You can't do that under the law. And yet he's saying that must be done, and it's resonating with millions of people. The proper response is to charge them with a crime, prove that they are guilty, and send them to prison, the same way you would with any other American citizen. So you can't denaturalize people because of this, and yet he's spreading this to millions of people. I think that's a serious problem. You're setting people up with expectations that simply cannot be met in reality. And then the idea that you would be denaturalizing and deporting entire families on the basis of one person's actions is a weird kind of guilt by association that we would never really morally or legally allow in any other context. Even if say you have a drug dealer who is illegally dealing drugs and his wife knows about it but is not directly involved, we would never say she should also be sent to prison, right? That's because she didn't do the crime. And so I think both morally, that's an incredibly questionable thing to suggest, but then also legally, there's already no way to denaturalize people because of this. Now, you could potentially deport them if they are on a temporary visa or a more limited legal immigration status, but you couldn't deport other people who didn't do the crime but are just their family members because of it. That would almost certainly be illegal and blocked in court. So again, he's just going off on this tirade that is not attached to reality, and millions of people are consuming it. I do think that's a problem, even though I totally understand his frustration. And then the second part of this, he aims at JD Vance and Donald Trump in a way that, because of what I just explained, doesn't really make sense. But I'll show you that in just a second. First, though, remember to make sure you're subscribed, hit the like button, comment with your thoughts about all of this so far down below, and do please consider becoming a channel member if you're watching us on YouTube. It is the #1 way to support my content so I can keep calling out BS on the left and right, and I don't have to pander to the YouTube algorithm one way or the other, and you will get early access to full-length, ad-free episodes of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast if you become a channel member. Link in the description or the pinned comment. Now let's look at the rest of this Asmongold clip here.
And until we have a candidate and a person that's willing to do that, then I'm not really interested in voting, if you want me to be honest. I'm really not interested in voting, because why is it that I'm going to vote for a slow rot of my country whenever the solution is so obvious? You can't flip the switch? Yeah, you can. You can easily flip the switch. You just do it.
Yeah, you just do it isn't how law works in a society with rule of law. You can't charge people with crimes that don't exist or take legal action against people that isn't established in our laws. You would have to pass a new bill in Congress allowing for denaturalization in the case of fraud, and then even then it could only apply to future cases. You couldn't go back and retroactively apply it. That would also be unconstitutional. Like, it is frustrating to watch popular streamers, whether it's Hassan or Asmongold, who are obviously talented entertainers and channel something that resonates with millions of people, but don't actually have that thorough grounding in understanding of how our government works and how politics works, opine so confidently on things where they're just not really fully knowledgeable. That's very frustrating, honestly. Now let's keep going here.
If JD Vance does not push for treason with capital punishment against Tim Walz, do not vote for him. If Trump does not deliver that, do not vote for him. Unless the most extreme, dramatic, brutal, aggressive option is on the table, I'm staying home.
There's a lot to unpack there, which is usually what I say after I've heard something kind of insane. So Asmongold, who again, millions of people received this message and agreed with it because he's such an influential guy at this point, he suggests that Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, should be charged with treason and executed by the Trump administration because of this Somali fraud scandal. And there's so many problems with that I hardly know where to begin. The first is that right now, there is no evidence that Tim Walz directly was involved in the fraud. Now, there's a hugely legitimate argument to be made that it's a massive governance failure that this happened under his watch, that he was warned about it and didn't do enough to investigate and crack down upon it. But it's not like he was knowingly giving money to illegal sham companies. That's not been proven. But what's so remarkable is that even if it was proven, that would be a crime, and you could charge him with that crime, but it wouldn't be treason. And nobody has been convicted of treason in the United States since, I believe, 1959. The last person even charged with it was somebody who, I think he was killed before he could actually be put on trial in an airstrike. But this was like, I'll look it up because I want to get the information here. I have this written down. Yeah, so here from a website for federal criminal defense attorneys, the rarity of treason. While accusations of treason are often thrown around amid the contentious political climate, the truth is that treason charges in America are rare. Of the 40 treason cases charged since the founding of the U.S., only 13 resulted in a conviction, and only 3 people have been executed for it. Since 1956, only 1 person has been indicted for treason. Adam Gadahan in 2006 for making propaganda videos for Al-Qaeda. He was killed in an airstrike before he could be brought to trial. Treason, the definition legally, I have this also here. Treason is a federal crime in the United States, as stated in Title 18 U.S. Code 2381. It is defined as, quote, levying war against the United States or adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. So even if there was evidence that Tim Walz had participated in fraudulent money laundering schemes with Somali daycares or what have you, which, to be clear, there is not. There is evidence of incompetent governance, of it happening under his watch, of him being warned that there was a fraud problem and not taking it seriously, but there's not any evidence that he directly participated in any illegal activity. Even if there was, that would be a fraud crime, but it wouldn't constitute waging war against the United States or giving aid to a foreign country at war with us. Because these people are U.S. citizens in most cases, and even not, they're not waging war. Stealing money is never considered waging war. It's just fraud. And that's a crime, but it isn't treason, and it's not even close. And also, the idea that you would take such a dramatic escalation in our modern politics as to execute a political opponent, and that would go well. That would be a totally chill precedent to set. They definitely wouldn't, the next time they took power, charge J.D. Vance with treason for something they did. Of course, do people not think through the consequences of the extreme and edgy stuff they say on the internet? Wait, why am I asking that like it's a question? No, they really don't. They just know it will rev people up, and so they don't worry about the pesky facts or details or actual law or the ramifications of the things they are suggesting. So I'm sorry, Asmongold, but it makes no sense to refuse to vote for J.D. Vance unless they do something that's literally baseless legally and they have absolutely no power to do. That's like setting yourself up to stay home and let a Democrat win based on a demand of your candidate and your politician that they literally couldn't fulfill if they wanted to, because that would never, ever stick in court, and there wouldn't even be a legal mechanism to do that. So I just wish these streamers would either stay in their lane a little bit more, or as much as they want to wade into politics, just do more thorough research or be a little less confident in how wrong you are. Whether it's Hassan or Asmongold or any of these influencers from across the political spectrum, I just am not impressed by this kind of thing. And I think it's unfortunate that they mislead millions of people with this kind of incendiary commentary. What do you guys think, though? Let me know in the comments to make sure that I know what y'all have to say about it. And do hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe if you aren't yet. Consider becoming a channel member to support my content. And with that, guys, that'll be it for today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk again real soon.